Imagine if you could see the world as it used to be over 100 years ago in 3D, through the eyes of an Arabian man. Using original 3D stereoscopic photography by the American colony, these digitally restored images by Phil Brown can now be seen by modern-day audiences like never before. This series of films features the Middle East. When these images were photographed between 1900 and 1920, most visitors to Petra would arrive at Man by train, to then continue the 42-kilometre journey. Petra is a unique 2,000-year-old rock-carved city that contains over 800 individual monuments, each carved in their entirety into the rose-red cliffs by the genius and skill of the Nabateans. One would never imagine that a great city like Petra in the middle of a desert would have enough water to sustain its population of up to 30,000 people. And so, in order to ensure an efficient water system, the Nabateans created a great network of cisterns and water channels that brought water into the city. It consisted of 8 springs for fresh drinking water, 36 dams to protect it from flash floods, and over 100 cisterns and reservoirs, and 125 miles of pipeline, providing a water supply that was, in fact, surplus to the needs of its population. El Muslim Tunnel was made to drain water away from the gorge. Shrines in Eagle Gully showing various cult rock cuttings in a gully near the north of El Muslim Tunnel. The Nabateans were nomadic Arabs who took advantage of Petra's proximity to regional trade routes to establish it as a major trading hub. A beautiful rugged terrain surrounding the Pink City, with these 3 enormous monuments known as Jinn blocks or God blocks standing guard, as it were, beside the pathway. Note the remains of the inlaid cornices. The obelisk tomb is named after the 4 Indian obelisks that decorate the top of the tomb. It is 2 stories high. The top story houses the tomb, while the bottom is a traditional dining hall for Nabatean funerary rites. On the way through the gorge to the treasury, you can see the altar Nike. Scattered through the gorge are minor carvings. The entrance to Petra is a long, winding sandstone canyon created by tectonic activity. Rising to approximately 600 feet in height, the canyons and gorges are an incredible sight. Most impressive are the colourful and distinctive sandstone patterns that decorate the rock walls. It is here that the remains of terracotta water-carrying pipes built into the sides of the canyon during Roman times were discovered. Petra is one of the wonders of the ancient world, and the treasury must be one of the greatest sculpted monuments ever created. It was carved entirely out of the rock from top to bottom. The towering doorway leads to a small hall with 3 small chambers, once used as a royal tomb. There's a pediment on the top of the door that is split in the middle. This is then surmounted by a cone, a capital, and then topped by an urn. The urn atop the treasury structure was rumoured to contain a pharaoh's hidden treasure. Significant damage from bullets may be seen pitting the urn. Locals attribute this to Bedouins shooting at the urn in the early 20th century in the hope of breaking it open and spilling out the treasure. Sadly, the decorative urn is in fact solid sandstone. triclinium close to El Casne on the east side of the lower gorge. A large canyon lined with the facades of various tombs, including an ancient urn tomb cathedral. Because the structure gradually weakened with age, a number of the tombs became vulnerable to thieves, and many of its treasures were stolen. At the end of the street of facades is the 2,000-seat Roman theatre from El Hupta. The theatre was originally built by the Nabateans, but was later enlarged by the Romans. It's still used today for the occasional performance. The Corinthian tomb and palace monuments on the El Hupta facade. The theatre and El Hupta area, which were cut from highly coloured veined sandstone. To the right is a general view of the Sextus Florentinus tomb. The tomb dates back to 129 AD and has 2 floors. The first floor features 4 columns and a gate above the triangle, while the upper floor contains the remains of columns on both sides crowned with a triangle and an urn. At the end of the colonnaded street are the ruins of the Roman Arch. This ceremonial entrance to the sacred section of town once had 3 impressive arches. The Winged Lion Temple. Numerous scrolls in Greek dating back to the Byzantine period were discovered in an excavated church near the Winged Lion Temple in Petra in December of 1993. In 1985, Petra was named a UNESCO World Heritage Site because of its unique role in the history of ancient Arabian trade and its spectacular cluster of monuments and tombs. The complex extends 264 kilometers across a rugged landscape of sandstone mountains, now regarded as one of the 7 ancient wonders of the world. A carved stone winged lion. Court and chambers in the El Habis area. A columbarium located in Jabal Habis. The columbarium has niches where urns were once placed. The unfinished tomb, showing the Nabatean method of beginning from the top of the structure and working their way downwards. They carved out a slot at the top and then added a wooden work platform which enabled them to carve the first section and then steadily work their way downwards to the bottom. Tourists at Petra having dinner in a cave. En route to the monastery, the Lion Tomb, set in a small gully, takes its name from the carved lions flanking its entrance. Carved high in the mountains, the monastery is a monumental building, measuring 50 meters in width and approximately 45 meters in height. It is the largest carved monument in Petra and dates back to the 1st century AD. Architecturally, the monastery is an example of the Nabatean classical style. After the treasury, it is the most visited building in Petra. The interior, like that of the treasury, is small in comparison to the facade. A classical niche in the chamber facing the monastery. A giant urn carved above the monastery. An eroded facade showing how variegated sandstone easily erodes. This is a small classical monument near Little Petra. The garden tomb is a funeral chapel in the Roman style. Just before the chapel on the right, a staircase leads up into the mountains. The site at the summit of the mountain contains elaborate rock altars used for animal sacrifices. This is the best preserved of all such sacred places of the ancient world, and from here one may take in the beautiful scenery that surrounds it. Another name for Petra is the Rose City, due to the colour of the stone from which it is carved. The lion monument or fountain was associated with the goddess Al-Uzza. The Renaissance tomb. It is an elegant facade with an intricately made set of crowns and 6 Nabatean jars, crowned by a gable. It has 3 funerary urns at the corners, framed by a Nabatean engaged pilasters. Roman soldier tomb. The facade of this tomb is decorated with engaged pilasters and columns that frame 3 niches. The central niche has a statue of a military officer, and it was from this that the tomb derived its name. A block tomb en route to Mount Hor. A serpent monument block tomb. The snake monument can just be seen above and to the left. The snake monument. This corniced monument just below the block tomb is a good example of severe erosion. This is a block tomb en route to Mount Hor. Exterior of Aaron's tomb on Harun Mountain. A rare exception, a cornice tomb with Nabatean inscription. And a tomb interior showing grave recesses. Gorge at El Beda Ridge, the White District. Little Petra is an archaeological site located north of Petra. Archaeologists believe that the whole area was a suburb of Petra. This is an eroded exterior of a tomb, showing the typical veining in the rock. Here we see the interior of tomb with its fluted columns. And here we can see details of beautifully veined sandstone. Archaeologists believe that several earthquakes, one in 363 AD, destroyed many buildings and crippled the vital water management system. It was further weakened by another major earthquake in 551 AD. Now, this forced the inhabitants to abandon the city. Later, the Arabs conquered the region in 663 AD. UNESCO described it as one of the most precious cultural properties of man's cultural heritage. Petra was named among the new 7 Wonders of the World in 2007. And so, Petra remains one of the most popular and most visited ancient sites in the world. This digital 3D restoration has been created by Phil Brown in order to preserve for future generations a record of ancient Petra, as it was originally photographed stereoscopically and as a tribute to the stereographers of the past. Petra, a rose-red city, half as old as time.